Being at the shelter can be really difficult for cats. They are regularly exposed to stressors like unfamiliar sounds and smells, confinement, and the loss of their human companions. It's a lot to cope with, and the majority of cats coming into the shelter lose around 5% of their body weight from the stress of the experience. Anorexia, or not eating well, is the most common condition that we see in adult cats at the shelter. Cats that go through prolonged periods of anorexia will require medical treatment to help them eat, and they can become quite sick. Helping cats eat better during their stay at the shelter is something that anyone can learn to do, whether you are a staff member, in-shelter volunteer, or foster parent. Using these tips can help cats get adopted sooner by decreasing their stress and keeping them eating and healthy. Tip number 1, offer kitten chow and junk food. Most cats coming into the shelter are used to eating dry food that is easy to find at grocery stores, like Meow Mix and Friskies. We call this food junk food because it might not be a great long-term diet, but in the short term, we want to feed cats food that is familiar to them. We've also found that kitten chow can be a tasty option for cats that aren't eating well. If you are caring for a cat and their tract is not eating well, check what kind of food they have in their cage. If they don't have tasty options, go ahead and dump their food and offer them kitten chow and junk food in 2 different bowls. Junk food and kitten chow containers are available in all the feeding areas. Tip number 2, offer tasty canned. Most adult cats prefer food that has gravy over pate. We have a designated spot and signage for tasty canned in the different feeding areas. Please keep an eye out for tasty canned options and go ahead and switch out any pate for tasty canned when cats aren't eating well. These are examples of tasty canned food. And these I would avoid if cats aren't eating well. Tip number 3, keep an eye out for social eaters. Social eaters are cats that tend to eat better when they have company. The loss of human companionship is a huge stressor for cats at the shelter, and it is likely that many are grieving the loss of their family. Spending just a little time with these cats and encouraging them to eat can have a huge impact. Let's do a little social eating session together with Mora. First, I offer tasty canned and bring it a little closer to her. I'm talking softly to her and pick up the food tray and set it back down a couple times.
Do you want anything? Have some food. Have some of your food. What do you think? You're not hungry?
Next, I offer my finger for her to smell and see if she wants to be petted. She offered her cheek, and so that's the green light for me to go ahead and pet her cheek. Then I go right back to reminding her about the food. She isn't interested in canned food, so I move on to kitten chow. Gently shaking the bowl, picking it up, and putting it back down again can be helpful. You basically want to make a big production of offering food and make it seem like eating is the most exciting thing in the world. For Mora, putting a couple of kibble in her bed seems to do the trick. Once she eats the kibble, I keep softly encouraging her to eat more.
There's a whole bowl right here. It's a whole bowl. A couple more? Here. Eat your food. Eat your food.
Once she's had enough, I move the bowl back to its regular spot in the kennel. Leaving food in the bed, particularly canned food, can be an added stressor. Some cats don't like the smell of canned food or don't want to have to lay right next to it. We want to make sure their bed is a place where they can comfortably rest. Tip number 4. When feeding, try to keep the cat's perspective in mind. One way to do this is by being mindful of the best locations to place food in the colony rooms. The best practice is to offer a variety of food options spread throughout the room, including on different shelves and levels. That way, cats don't have to come down or move too far from their comfort zone to eat. This also creates less resource competition. These food stations are well intentioned and might keep the floor a little cleaner, but this is not the ideal setup for feeding colony cats. Leaving canned food trays inside hiding boxes should be avoided as well. We want to make sure that cats can rest comfortably and avoid inadvertently making them more nauseous. It's a good idea to bring canned food over to where a cat is hiding during morning cleaning, or if you're spending time with them, encouraging them to eat. Just make sure you move the tray a few feet away before you leave.
He's gonna be right here for you, okay? Good girl.
And of course, don't put food bowls too close to the litter box. You can apply this tip to cats in cages, although it's a little more subtle. What do you notice about the cage setup in this picture? If this cat isn't eating well, what might help her? I notice that her food and water bowl are on her bedding. She has 2 trays of pate, and the bowls are pretty big, not leaving her a lot of room. The setup in this second picture allows her more space, gives her more tasty food options, and her resting area is more clearly defined. Let's compare again. I know that it's subtle, but it might decrease this cat's stress just a little bit. It can be tricky to strike a balance between offering a variety of food and overwhelming the cats. This kennel is an example of too many food options. This much food in a small living space is just too overwhelming. Tip number 5, restock the food shelves. Having the right food options available nearby when you are doing animal care, feeding, or enrichment ensures that cats are fed appropriately. Tasty canned food is probably the most important item to restock. All cat food can be found in the purchasing area in the back and can be restocked in the kitchen, office cart, and backwards. Now let's recap the top tips to helping shelter cats eat better. 1. Offer a variety of food, including kitten chow, junk food, and tasty canned. 2. Keep an eye out for social eaters and spend extra time with them. 3. Think about the ideal location of food bowls from the cat's perspective. 4. Restock the shelves, including the backwards. Now, not all cats need special attention to eat, and you won't always have the time to provide it. But my hope is that anyone that spends time with shelter cats can become comfortable with and feel empowered to try a few things to help these guys eat better and reduce their stress. It's easy to do and can have such a huge positive impact.